Hello everyone, it's Tracy. Welcome back to my channel. Thanks for joining me. So today I'm making a three-dimensional turntable picture frame, and the die set I'm using was designed by Nicole van Kalsbeek of Verkooijen, also known as Nicole Silhouette. Here is a frame that I've made previously, and it was for a friend of mine. Now I did not record myself making this one, so this isn't the one that we're making today. I put my own spin onto this by adding doors to the picture frame, and I really think it gives it a lovely touch. I added some ready-made flowers, and those pearls that have been stuck on are half-back pearls, and they've all been stuck on one by one. Crazy, yes I know, but it is something that I do enjoy doing and find relaxing. I've also added some bigger pearls to the doors for handles. And for the top I just used a bead from in my stash with a pearl covering the hole. For today's video, this is the picture frame that I will be making. Let's get started. So we've got our die pieces here from the die set, and you need to cut two of these, two of these, two of these, one each of these, two of these pieces, and these three pieces need to be cut 8 times. Moving on to our pieces, and I've got the front and the back here, and this piece that comes out when you cut it, we need to hang on to that for a bit later. These two pieces, we need to fold along the score lines. The first fold, you fold towards you, then you fold away. So towards you, away. And that creates the shape of the box, and then we're going to glue the tabs onto the outside, and we do that on all 4 sides. For this project I'm using a combination of liquid glue and double-sided sticky tape. The liquid glue I'm using is Tombow mono-adhesive glue. It is a good glue and it's very strong, but sometimes I can find it gets a bit sticky on my fingers. I'm waiting for some Sookwang tape to arrive, which I have ordered. It comes highly recommended from Nicole, and she has a link on her YouTube channel, which I shall link below. So I've got these 2 pieces done and ready. Moving on to the next 2 pieces, these 2 octagon shapes, and one of the octagon shapes I'm going to trim down by about 1 millimetre off each side. And just make sure that you don't lose track of where you're at, otherwise you'll go around the octagon too many times. So you can see here I haven't cut off very much at all. And now we have one piece smaller than the other. So we'll set those aside. These are the side pieces of the picture frame. We don't need to do much with those, so I'll set those aside also. These 2 pieces here are the top and the bottom of the picture frame. The smaller piece here is the bottom, and the top piece here is the top, and it's also a little bit bigger than the bottom piece. And quite obviously it looks different. I have cut triangles along each of the score lines there, and there's also double-sided sticky tape along there as well. And the reason why we do that is so that it's easier to position along this curved top of the picture frame. And we'll get to that a bit later on. Okay, moving on, and we've got these rectangle pieces here, and what will happen with these is they'll get stacked and glued together, as will these octagon pieces with the hole in the centre. And there are 8 of those, and we leave one aside, but what I like to do is cut 16 of them and have 15 glued together with one aside. We'll talk a bit more about that later. These are the 8 pieces for the base of the picture frame, and I've gone ahead and put double-sided tape so that it's easier to put together. You also need a paper drinking straw, and these are available from most party places. But what I have found, and I think is the case here in Australia, I think our drinking straws are a bit wider, but I'll talk about that a little bit later. So I actually have to use 2 drinking straws. I'll explain why soon. So I'll go ahead here and I'm going to push the drinking straw through all of those shapes so that the holes get used to that wider shape. And I'm going to glue the rectangles together and stack them on top of each other, but I'm going to thread them onto the straw whilst I do it. And you can see that I have bent the straw, trying to get it through those holes, and that's why I think our straws are a little bit wider. But that's okay, this all still works. So I'll get all the rectangles all glued together, and then I start on the octagons. And I do the same with those. I glue them together and then thread them onto the straw once I've got a couple glued together. And this is getting the holes used to having the straw through the centre of them. So it's going to be easier to put it all together. You may not have this trouble, but that's what I had trouble with. So there's my bent straw, but I got another straw and I'll set that aside for later. So you can see here I went ahead and glued the stacked octagons onto that octagon that was trimmed down, and I've put the straw into the hole in the centre. So now we've got the smaller octagon and the larger one, and everything's glued down. I prefer to do it this way rather than glue the base together and then try and feed the straw through. So now I'm going to glue the pieces of the base together, and this is fairly straightforward. You just line the pieces up after removing the release tape and put them into place, taking care to line them up. And what I like to do is burnish the back so that we get a good stick. And I do this for all 8 pieces. And I take my time doing it because I want it to be straight. And I want the piece to go together well. So I had to speed it up, otherwise if I left it in real time, you'd be sitting here for ages watching me do it. So I'm trying to be very precise. And I always find my scalpel helps when I'm trying to remove release tape. So just gluing the last piece in place here, and we're going to join it all together. This is going together very well, and that's a credit to Nicole because she's designed the dies very well. So I've just got that last bit in, put the base together, and now it's time to feed this piece and attach it to the base piece. So I've gone ahead here and I've put double-sided sticky tape on both sides of these flaps that I'm bending back. And I'm going to feed that piece through. Now this is just the way I'm doing it. You could follow Nicole's instructions on her YouTube channel and do it her way, but this is just the way I prefer to do it. And I prefer to use double-sided tape at this stage because glue would just be too messy. And I'd have it everywhere. So I just get one of the pieces and I stick it down. And it takes a little bit of finagling to hold it with your fingers, but you can do it. And I push it down onto my mat and put my bone folder inside to push the pieces down. So I'm just checking there to make sure the straw's not compromised. And I put my bone folder inside, and this is where I realised I didn't take the release tape off one of those tabs. That's why it wasn't sticking. So I stick it down, put the bone folder in, make sure it's all got a good stick. And then I get my other octagon, the one we didn't cut down, and make sure that's going to fit in place nicely, which it will. And then I take the release tape off these other tabs. And now I'm going to put glue around because I'd like it to get a really good stick. And I get that octagon and I put it into place, and it fits into place beautifully. And that's because Nicole has designed these dies so very well. I've been putting together 3-dimensional projects for many years now, and these die sets that Nicole's designing are right up there. So this is that last octagon piece that we put aside, and I'm threading it through over the top of the straw, and I'm going to glue it into place. And you can see that I've done that. And the base is looking pretty good. I'm very happy with it. Okay, so we're going to move on, and this is the base piece of the picture frame. I'm going to fold along the score lines, and that rectangle that we stacked and glued together, that's going to get glued onto the inside of that piece. It's going to be on the inside of the picture frame, so we won't see it. It's actually for some reinforcement for when the straw and the base gets threaded through. So I'm going to push the straw through so that it gets used to the width of it and give it some persuasion to get it through there. and that piece is set aside. Onto this part here, and I'm folding along the score lines of the side pieces, and then I'll set those two aside. Then I'll bring in the front and the back of the picture frame, front and back piece. And we're going to stick those to these pieces. I think we'll call these the shadow box pieces. So I'm just putting some glue along the bottom. And we're going to stick it from the bottom because I'll tell you why in a second. Just taking care to line the corners up and press it into place. And everything lines up so beautifully. It's really good. I've always been partial to putting together three-dimensional projects. I'll just get that last edge glued down. And the reason why you line it up along the bottom is because along this top piece here, once you've done that, there should be a little edge. And if you wanted to, you could glue something under there to have it hanging. So I went ahead and I got the other piece all glued together as well. So now it's time to put these sides on. So I get some glue and run it down that side. Turn the picture frame over. Taking care to line it up, and of course it lines up beautifully. And you press it into place. And I do like to burnish where I have glued, just so we get some good stick. So that's that side glued on. Now it's time to glue this side on. Just taking care to line it up and press it into place. Now we've got this top piece here, and I'm just going to get it into some sort of curve to it, and I'm going to remove the release tape off all those little triangles. And I'm going to get the corner and put it against the corner of the frame of the top of the frame piece there. And you can see that having those triangles cut in, it helps the piece bend around those curves. And this is helping this piece fall into place perfectly. So I'm just rubbing my fingernail along there just to give it some burnishing and pushing all those little tabs into place. Now this is probably not the way Nicole put it together on her video, but it's just the way I found to be a little bit easier. Now with this other side, I'm going to remove the release tape off those tabs. And what I also do here on the back of the other side of the frame, so I'm going to run some 1/8 inch double-sided tape just along that edge there. And that's just to have a little bit of extra stick, because this side is harder to put on, because you don't have any room for your hands or anything like that to get in and under. So I'll take the release tape off and I start putting this in place. So I line up the corner and follow the curve. And having those tabs there, you can follow along the curve without any problem. And I can just get my fingers in behind. So I'm just making sure these tabs are holding in place, and I get one of my tools to press them down in place, and I can see through from behind where they are, because the sides aren't glued down yet, and that's why I didn't glue the sides down, so that I could see what I was doing. So I'm just applying some glue here, and I'm going to close up the sides. I'll just put a little bit of glue down that side, just so that I can glue the top piece on. And I hold that in place for a bit until the glue sets up. So once that's in place, I pop over to the other side and put some glue onto the tab and a little bit down the side and put that into position and hold it until the glue sets up. Doesn't take very long. So once that's glued down, I run some glue along the edge piece there to close up that side, and then do the same on the other side. I then get my bone folder and I put it inside and rub it along where those pieces were just glued down, just to make sure that it's stuck down well, because we don't want it coming apart. Now all we've got to do is put the bottom on, and this is the bottom piece, and I'm just reinforcing that hole again with the straw. And I'm going to put glue on all the tabs. I'm going to stick the long tabs in first, those long sides. So I'm putting the piece into position here with the long side first and just pressing it into place. And I go ahead and do the other side. And what I found was the other smaller side pieces, they just fell into place perfectly. I didn't really have to do anything. They already had glue on them and they just fell into place. Now it's time to put the base piece into position through the centre of the picture frame. The best way I found to do this was to just gently screw it in with a little bit of force, not too much because it is only made out of paper. So I was holding the bottom of it and twisting it, and then you can see it was poked up through the top there. And it went together very well. And I'm just twisting it here just to make sure it's gone all the way through. And you can see there that I had a bead on the top, but I didn't actually leave that on there. I changed that a bit later on. Now there's two other pieces that I mentioned before to put aside. What we're going to do with those is we're going to trim about 1/8 of an inch off the long side and the short side off both the pieces. And what we are doing here is we are making the doors for the picture frame. So I'm just checking to make sure that that fits, and it does. And I bring my guillotine back in and I'm going to cut the two pieces in half. So I'm just measuring here so I can get the halfway point, and I cut it in half. And then I've got 4 pieces, so 2 doors, 1 each side of the picture frame. So I get my scoreboard and I score each of those 4 pieces 1/8 of an inch in. And then I fold along those score lines that I just made. And that's in effect going to be our hinges for our doors. So I get my glue and I run it just under that fold line that I made. And I'm going to put it in place inside the picture frame. And where I'm gluing it is to basically the back of that shadow box. Not the side or the front, the back. Although if you wanted to, you could stick it to the side or the front, but you would have to alter the size of your doors. So I'm just making sure that it's got a good stick. And I'm just folding along there, making sure those doors open and close properly and that the glue has set up well. And there we have our opening and closing doors. I do the same on the other side, and you can just see here I'm just gluing the last door in place, making sure that it's stuck down. And I'm opening it up, working that fold on both sides so that that fold knows what it's got to do. And this is pretty well ready for decorating. Onto the decorating, and this lovely piece that is wicker pattern has come from the Kaisercraft Basecoat 12 by 12 paper pack, which I believe is still available. And this other sheet of paper I've used is also from Kaisercraft, the High Tide collection, and it is the Harbour piece of paper. To make your decorator piece for the front of your picture frame, you need to use this die, and you put it cut blade side up. And what I'm going to do is line it so that there's a little bit showing at the top. And I'm going to slice that off with my scalpel. I'm just making sure I've got it in the right position. and I'm going to press down fairly hard, and you can see my fingers there. I'm pressing very hard so it doesn't move, and I'm running my scalpel along that edge. And then I'm going to trim about 1 millimeter off all the sides and also the center of the hole as well. This die set didn't come with decorator panels, and if you don't mind making them yourself, it doesn't take much extra time at all, and it doesn't worry me. You can do this with scissors if you're not real comfortable with a scalpel and a metal ruler, but I've been wielding a scalpel and a metal ruler now for many years, so for me it's no issue. But you can do it with scissors. And I actually do get my scissors to fix up some of the cuts here, because it was just easier. So I do that to both of my decorator pieces for the front and back of my picture frame. And when I bring in the picture frame, you can see that there's a nice white edge around both the outside and the inside, and I do like that look. Onto the decorator panels for the other pieces, you will need the top, the side and the base piece from the die set. I'm going to cut one of those, 2 of these, and you'll need to cut 8 of those from your designer paper, and I'm using the seashell paper. So for the video, I'm just going to show you 1 of each. So I'm going to use my metal ruler and a scalpel again. You can use scissors if you'd like, and I'm going to cut 1 millimeter or so under the score line. I'm going to do that on all 4 sides. If you're going to use a scalpel, please make sure you have a sharp blade in it. Nothing worse than trying to cut something with a blunt blade. And that will go on the top of your picture frame, and it leaves a nice white edge around. Onto the side piece, and I'm going to do the exact same thing. About 1 millimeter under the score line. So we're making our own decorator panels for this project. And also, if you're going to be using a scalpel and a metal ruler, please be careful. You don't want to cut yourself. Ask me how I know. So that will go on the side with a nice white edge around. And for the base piece, you'll do the same thing. You'll cut about 1 millimeter off each of those score lines. Even that side that doesn't have a score line, you'll still cut 1 millimeter off that one as well. And that goes in place on your base piece, just like that. And you'll do that 8 times around. So here it is, it's all finished and decorated. And I've even put a different top on the top. I took away the bead and I put a hitch fastener from Tim Holtz. And I also put some wooden decorator pieces that are available from Kaisercraft. I think I used 3 different packs. And I'm also using some brads, pretty brads that are like drawer handles. They're also from Tim Holtz. And the seahorse charms, they were in my stash. I've had them for years. And I liked how this all came together. A pretty little beachside picture frame. Please check the description box below for the links for the products I have used. And if you'd like to subscribe to my YouTube channel, I would really love that. Thanks very much for watching. Bye for now.